The storm had started just as she stepped off the bus, soaking her worn-out shoes before she could even cross the street. The rain poured mercilessly, cold and heavy, drenching her thin coat as she tried to shield her little boy with a trembling hand. In her other arm, she clutched an old lunch bag and a stack of papers, resumes that had been rejected more times than she could count. Emily Carter stood there on the sidewalk, staring at the tall office building that had once given her hope, and now only reminded her of everything she'd lost. Her son, Liam, no more than 6 years old, held her hand tightly, shivering in the cold, whispering, "Mommy, are we going home?" If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us what it means to be human, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales, because today's story might just change the way you see people forever. Emily had been a single mother for almost 3 years now. Life hadn't been easy since her husband's sudden death in a car accident, a hit-and-run that left her shattered and alone with a toddler to raise. She worked as an assistant at a large corporate firm in downtown Chicago, barely managing to cover rent and food. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, packed Liam's small backpack, and prayed the babysitter wouldn't cancel again. But on that fateful Monday morning, everything went wrong. The sitter called in sick. Emily begged her neighbor to watch Liam, but she had her own children to care for. The clock ticked closer to 8 a.m., and Emily knew she'd be late again, something her boss, Mr. Hargrove, had warned her about too many times. So she made a decision that would change her life forever. She brought Liam to work. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. She planned to keep him quiet with coloring books and snacks in the corner of her cubicle. But when the office's regional director decided to make a surprise visit, everything spiraled out of control. The sound of a child's soft laughter, Liam's innocent giggle as he drew her a picture, caught the director's attention. The next thing Emily knew, she was standing in Mr. Hargrove's office, her heart pounding as he said those dreadful words, "I'm sorry, Emily. You know the policy. You're terminated effective immediately." She tried to explain, she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes, explaining the situation, her lack of childcare, the desperate morning she had faced. But rules were rules. The office had an image to maintain, and a single mother's struggle didn't fit into that polished glass building. She packed her desk quietly, ignoring the sympathetic looks from a few coworkers who didn't dare speak up. As she walked out carrying Liam in her arms, she held her head high, though every step felt like another crack in her soul. The days that followed were dark. Emily searched for jobs relentlessly, but no one wanted to hire someone with unreliable childcare. Her savings disappeared faster than she could count. She skipped meals to make sure Liam had enough. Some nights, she cried silently beside him, whispering promises that things would get better, though she didn't believe them herself. There were moments she thought about giving up, but every time she saw her son's tiny face looking up at her with unwavering trust, she found the strength to keep going. Weeks turned into months. Winter came, and with it, colder nights and colder shoulders from employers who wouldn't take a chance on her. She started cleaning houses, taking whatever odd jobs she could find. One morning, as she was wiping tables at a local diner, she overheard a group of businessmen talking about a new company opening nearby, a place known for its community outreach and family-friendly environment. Something about it lit a spark in her heart. She scribbled the name down on a napkin, Evergreen Tech Industries. Emily didn't have much hope left, but she walked into their open hiring event anyway, wearing her best blouse, the same one she wore to her husband's funeral because it was the only nice one she had left. She filled out an application and waited. When they finally called her name for an interview, she could barely stop her hands from shaking. The interviewer, a kind-faced woman named Claire, smiled and asked about her background. Emily spoke honestly, about her past job, her dedication, and even the day she was fired. For the first time, she didn't hide the truth. Claire nodded quietly, then said she'd pass her application to the head of the department for review. A week later, Emily received a call. She had been hired as a front desk coordinator. It felt like a dream, a fragile one she didn't dare wake from. On her first day, she arrived early, dressed neatly, determined to prove herself. The office atmosphere was different here, warm, welcoming, full of laughter and open doors. No one looked down on her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. But fate had another twist waiting. 2 months into her new job, Emily received a call from Liam's school. He had a fever, and no one could pick him up. Her heart raced. She couldn't afford to leave early, she was still in her probationary period. But she couldn't let her son stay there sick, waiting alone. Without thinking twice, she grabbed her bag and rushed out. When she returned with Liam, pale and drowsy, she quietly sat him in the break room with some water, hoping no one would notice. Unfortunately, someone did. A senior executive had walked in during that moment, tall, confident, mid-30s, clearly someone important. He stopped, looking at the small boy curled up on the couch, then at Emily's panicked face. She stammered, trying to explain before he could speak. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't have anyone else. I'll take him home right now, please don't." But the man didn't respond right away. Instead, he stared at her for a long moment, something shifting in his eyes. Then he said softly, "What's his name?" "Liam," she whispered. The man knelt down beside the boy, brushed his hair back gently, and smiled. "Hi, Liam. I'm Daniel." Then, standing up, he turned back to Emily and said something that made her heart stop. "Emily. I was that kid." She blinked, confused. He continued, voice trembling slightly. "My mother used to bring me to work when she couldn't afford childcare. She was fired for it too. I remember her crying in the parking lot, thinking she'd failed me. But that moment, her sacrifice, is why I built this company. Evergreen Tech was founded so no mother would ever have to choose between her child and her job again." Tears filled Emily's eyes as Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to apologize," he said. "You're exactly the kind of person we want here. Dedicated. Compassionate. Strong." He looked down at Liam again, smiling warmly. "He can stay here as long as he needs. We have a wellness room and a small daycare area in the building. You're family now." That day, everything changed. Emily wasn't just an employee anymore, she became part of a community that valued humanity over policy. Her story began to spread quietly among her colleagues, inspiring others who had faced similar struggles. Daniel later shared her story at a company meeting, calling her a symbol of resilience and love. "Sometimes," he said, "the people who struggle the most are the ones who build the strongest bridges for others." Months later, Emily was promoted to office manager, overseeing the very team she once feared losing her job to. Liam recovered quickly and became a familiar face around the office, known for his bright smile and the little drawings he left on everyone's desks. And Daniel, true to his word, expanded the company's childcare support program nationwide, helping hundreds of single parents find balance and hope again. Emily often thought back to that day in the rain, the day she was fired and humiliated. What had once felt like the end of everything turned out to be the beginning of something far greater. She learned that sometimes life takes everything away from you, not to punish you, but to clear a path for something better. If this story touched your heart, if you believe no parent should ever be punished for choosing love over work, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Tales. And before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Speech balloon comment below, what's one act of kindness or second chance that changed your life?